Welcome everybody to another episode of DNS Unfiltered. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Ken Carnesi, the CEO of DNSFilter. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thanks, Mikey. Good to see you.
Yeah, glad to have you here. I've been trying to
Happy
get
to be here.
I've been trying to get Ken on the pod for a little while, but as you can imagine, CEOs get a little busy.
A little bit.
A little
I
bit.
think we rescheduled this like 3 times now.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. We won't tell the audience that. So I kind of wanted to start out talking to you, Ken, about how you kind of developed into DNS Filter, because you've not always been the CEO of DNS Filter. Like, you did things before that. And somehow all of your experiences led up to, a very important company in the DNS space. I'm curious about that backstory a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, before DNS filter, uh, back in school and in college at Boston College in 2007, I started a company called Anaptix to design, deploy, and maintain large Wi-Fi networks. So I would say it's a hybrid between like a MSP and a WISP, like a wireless ISP. Probably more closer to the MSP side, I think, because we only would do like singular properties and stuff like that and locations as opposed to like letting anybody sign up. But yeah, it actually started off just with like and I was living in a pretty dumpy apartment building in Boston, and I convinced the HOA to let me put an antenna on the roof. So I invested like $800 in a big Wi-Fi antenna with a heated, Wi-Fi router, and put it on my roof. And I went around the town, around the blocks in the town, and put like those flyers up with the pull off stickers that if you want internet for $30 a month, I'll hook you up.
I'll
So
beam it to your building.
yeah. So it started off there, and it took 3, 4 years, 5 years maybe, or something like that. But I started off doing, that I didn't really do many situations like that, but it started being like apartment, condo buildings, hotels, resorts, things like that. And ultimately, I'd say in the 2010 or 11 timeframe, I started deploying more government type networks. So that could be state or federal, like libraries, courthouses, naval hospitals, military bases, things like that. And those uh, those types of networks, they required us to have filtering on them, to block
Hmm.
inappropriate content. So that's kind of how I got into it. I started using this product OpenDNS at the time to do it. I didn't want to have any hardware or anything like that. So I always felt that DNS was the path to do it. And that was really my first, like, I guess, introduction, you'll say, to it. The interesting part was I didn't have to use it. I didn't understand though the power of it yet. Actually, it was just a requirement that I had to do. So I'd say when it really clicked for me that this was like a useful technology was actually back at the hotel type networks and the apartment complexes and things like that. I was having bandwidth issues. Like, there was always network congestion and everything like that. And I never had to do filtering at it. I mean, you could imagine you don't want to block inappropriate content at hotels.
Right.
you know, People wouldn't return probably. So, but I put OpenDNS on those networks and just started looking at the traffic that was going through. And I saw there was a lot of stuff that was classified as threats coming through. So I was like, oh, well, no reason I shouldn't be able to block threats on these networks. Like, nobody wants that happening, right? So I blocked those threats, and not only did I see it made people safer, of course, it also stopped like a lot of the copyright notices I was getting, people doing like pirated content and everything like that. But the
Hmm.
interesting fact was it solved actually all my network issues. Like, all these people bringing infected devices into the network that was dragging it down, it all just went away overnight. So I'd say that's the moment where I noticed how powerful filtering, especially at the DNS layer without needing any equipment, could be.
And that kind of leads me into my next question about this OpenDNS software that you were using. Really great at the time. Kind of one of the first in the space to do like a no hardware type of firewall type of thing. And now at DNSFilter, we go right up against what is now Umbrella. That was OpenDNS. So I'm just curious, like from, let's just say like a CEO perspective, what is it like to go up against those industry giants?
It's challenging for sure. I mean, there's actually a kind of funny story. I don't even know if I told you about it, but um, well, I'll kind of say like what made me start DNSFilter, but there's a funny story about OpenDNS in there. So basically, they called me out one day and they said that they thought I was overusing, or, I was basically a different type of customer, even though I went and went through the proper channels and everything. And they said, we're going to have to raise your price. I was generally okay with that, but this price increase was going to be like
Hmm.
700-ish% as far as I recall.
Just a
So
slight 700%.
yeah. So you can imagine on government networks, those are fixed contracts, so I can't just find budget. And then on the hotels and stuff, like I said, I didn't have to do it. It was just something I was doing out of my pocket. So that was a quick no. And I looked around and I briefly landed on this product called Internet Guide from Dyn. That did an okay job, but there were no statistics or analytics or anything like that. So that's kind of what drove me to start. It wasn't even drove me to start DNSFilter. Truthfully, it was really just I started making and I made an MVP of something for myself for my own use case, and that was the only intention I ever had here. Um, then a few months into that, it was like the summer of 2015. I saw an article in TechCrunch that that OpenDNS had been acquired. It was now Cisco Umbrella, and it was a $635 million acquisition. I was like, that's a lot of money. I can't
Yeah.
believe that I had no idea that they were like being used that much and that prevalent. But I figured, hey, there's got to be a lot of people, and now it makes sense why they tried to raise the price on me. There's got to be a lot of people in my similar situation where they either had to say no and couldn't find something good, or said yes because they couldn't find something good. But now is the time to try to make a go here. So we went for it. Um, we got some like beta users at first. I wasn't even charging for the service. We just got 300 or 400 people using it. A bunch of those people came over from Internet Guide, actually from Dyn, because they happened to sunset their service as well, and some of their support people sent people our way. Um, and it was funny, I guess, we got to a point where I'm like, I guess we got to start charging here. So we just turned it on. I think I just picked $20 a month. Just pay $20 a month, and we turned it on. And this is like mid to late 2017, and almost everybody stayed. So I was like, all right, well, I guess we got a business now, and decided to go for it. So I remember the funny part about OpenDNS part is the first day that I was still working at Anaptix at my MSP, but I decided I'm gonna go full time, right? So I needed an office. So I was really still in my office. I went across the hallway and went to this conference room and I sat down and I was like, beginning of the day, I'm like, all right, I got to go start getting some customers now. And I was like, how do I do that? Well, our competitors, OpenDNS and everything. I went to the OpenDNS website, looked at all their customer testimonials, and I just started firing off emails to all their customers that had the testimonials, like, hey, you want to try this out and everything. By the end of the day, before I left that conference room, I had an email from David Yulovich, the who is the CEO and founder of OpenDNS, like, what the hell are you doing here? Like, you shouldn't be saying these things. What are they're not true. And I was like, I forget what they were. It was probably something about I
Price
really don't recall.
increase,
It could have been
lack of
a
innovation.
yeah, it was that we were better at something. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, well, here's the proof. It is true. And he was like, all right, well. whatever, just don't be emailing our customers. And that was when I was like, wow, okay, it's that easy to get them rattled. Like, that fired me up. I thought there was an opportunity here. So now though, bringing it back to your question, it's crazy because, it's went a lot beyond anything I anticipated it could at the day that I started it. And, I don't know, man. I would say it's not actually that hard to compete against them
Well, you
to,
kind of proved that on like day
yeah.
one. You're like, oh wow. And instead of like extinguishing your fire for this for DNS, which you now had like a pretty good solid respect for the power that it could deliver, and having him try to put your flame out just like made a blaze, and you're like, oh, this is happening.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I think I thrive on competition, so I always want to be the best and I want us to be the best. I feel really passionate about it. So having competition, just all it does is fire me up, But the reality is we got a lot of really passionate people here who know a lot about it. I care, and I think a lot of others do, about protecting people for real. Everybody here has equity in the company, it means something to them. So I feel like when you're doing that work and you're doing threat modeling and hunting those threats and trying to build the product, it just means a lot more to us than, I'll say, a company of thousands of people where it's kind of just a job.
So since you brought it up, and I wanted to bring this up later, but since you kind of hinted on it, let's talk about competition for a minute. And
Okay.
I believe the recent Zorus acquisition kind of started from a cease and desist as well.
Hmm.
Something that Brett told me about a day or two ago. And I'm curious what your take on this cease and desist is, and how this Zorus DNS filter unification started.
Oh, that's exactly it. I mean, it started off, I remember they had this marketing tagline that we were old hat and they were something else. I was like, come on, like whatever. And but that was years ago before Brett was there. And yeah, this did start off as a cease and desist. It was pretty interesting because they had a competitive like a comparison page against Zorus versus DNS filter. I can't recall exactly what the items were, but they said we didn't do things that we did, and
Yeah, like
and
no
you know
iOS clients. Like, actually, we do have one.
exactly. And honestly, again, this goes to before Brett had it all, but like they had a history of doing that. So I took a really aggressive stance with him, fired him a letter from our chief legal officer, got on the call, was prepared to just be a total ass with to him, and I think he was prepared to do the same with me. And like I don't know what it was, but like he made me laugh or something like that on the call, and I was like, this guy's not, he's not a dick. Like I can't
He's not the
be.
evil person I thought he was.
Yeah. And we were like, all right, why don't we meet up at IT Nation? So we sat down there and we talked for, it was probably just supposed to be a little bit. I think we ended up talking for like 3 hours, and it just became apparent that we were like almost the same person. And yeah, and then here we are today. I mean, it just became that apparent that, DNS filter, we've grown so much doing so many different types of customers. MSPs is where we started and where I started. It's really important. I felt like we were, I don't want to say, I don't know if losing touch is the right way to put it, but more that, we didn't have anybody specialized in that anymore because of the wide variety of things and customers we had. So I was
Hmm.
like, hey, this is a great opportunity to take a team of people who have lived their whole lives in MSP. And I know that they're going to take really good care of the customers that I care about. So why don't we bring them in and let them run the whole MSP part of the operation? It's kind of, where it started. And also they have a great, I think they're really well known for their endpoint agent stability. We were having some trouble with that. That's definitely top of my mind. And so yeah, I think it's a great fit. It's crazy. I go down there and it just feels like I don't know how to explain it. It feels like I obviously haven't worked with them for years, but it just feels like I have, like the level of connection you have when you come in with everybody who works there.
Yeah, it's a natural fit. And I was talking about the same thing with Brett, that the teams are really meshed very well. Like we've been like cracking jokes at each other, even making fun of like us lurking on their stuff and them lurking on ours. And like it's kind of funny how it's turned out. Really, really well. That has turned out really well.
Yeah, it's almost funny going through, the discovery and like there's stuff you can talk about before a deal closes versus after. Obviously, we are competitors, so we couldn't go super deep if something was to have fallen apart. But it's funny now, once it's closed and you go down there and you start going through everything and you're like, how do you guys do that? And like, oh, we do it like this. And we're like, we knew you couldn't do that or whatever. And then they give it back to you and it makes it actually fun to go through it and combine the two because you get there and we're finally like, okay, to be fair, you do this better, or and you guys do this
Right.
better. And then it's just
Concessions.
exciting. It's exciting to not compete against each other anymore and instead combine everything, and everybody's really honest about like who's good at what or who's better at what.
Well, let's talk about one thing that DNS Filter is really good at, which is our global network. So starting a DNS filtering company, I guess you assume like, I guess I have to have an Anycast network, like at some point. Like, how did something like that come into existence? It seems like a very hard thing to solve.
Yeah, it is because it's like it's a super unique technology that not that many people have, right? Um, I'm trying to think about the name. I can't, I
Anycast?
won't, no, I won't look it up now, but it started off, we had this hosting provider. I don't even know if they exist anymore. But they
Packet.net and Net Actuate.
no, they might have they ran our interstitial infrastructure for a bit, but they had limited Anycast locations. You might remember it. They had only like three or four when we started with them.
Yes, I know the one you're talking
They were
about.
based out of Netherlands or something.
Yeah, FYI, I used to be the one to deploy our Anycast network.
No, I don't. Yeah, well,
And I can't even
no comment.
remember.
No comment.
Ken's like, I'm glad you got a microphone. Just stick to that, buddy.
But anyway, it started off like we used that like this out of the box provider. It's gonna kill me that I can't remember who it is, but yeah, it only had three, four, five locations, and it wasn't enough as you got global and everything like that. So it became apparent really quickly that we were gonna have to figure out how to do this ourselves. And my co-founder at the time, this guy Mike Schroll, he knew networking pretty well. He had started a hosting company. I knew it pretty well too, but like BGP Anycast is a completely different beast. It's very rare. Not many people know about it. So I remember him sort of freaking out a little bit, like how are we going to figure this out? And I have this different approach, I think, where I'm just like, there's nothing that there's nothing that you cannot achieve is just how I feel. Like it just takes time and research. So what I did was I started Googling and I saw there was they have these O'Reilly manuals, I'm sure you've seen, about various things. Well, there was an O'Reilly manual about BGP Anycast. And I was like, okay, I'm going to look up who wrote that book. And the next day, it was this guy in Austria. The next day, or a day or 2 days later, we were on Skype with him in Austria, and we just paid him. I don't even know that he charged us at the end of the day, but we were like, "Hey, can we just ask you questions for an hour or two?" And by answering all those questions, we could just kind of get a lot of our stuff solved and start on it and just learn. That was really, though, truthfully, I had little involvement after that stage in that. That was definitely more.
Yeah, you're like
Uh,
Anycast. I got you your resources. Go do it.
yeah, that was really Mike and I guess ultimately you too back then.
Yeah,
So, but
I
yeah,
was
it's
the
crazy what it's grown into now.
So I'm really glad you told that story. I wasn't trying to pry it out of you, but I'm really glad you did because it really, to me, tells a lot about your personality, Ken. That you saw a barrier, and your co-founder was like, I don't know, like super stressed, and you kind of said like, well, if you could learn from anybody about this technology, who would it be? It's like, well, the person that wrote the book on the technology. And you moved everything out of the way to find this person, contact them, get them to agree to a few hour session to coach you guys on how to do it. Like, that is just impressive mental fortitude, first of all. It
Thank you.
really,
Thank
it
you.
reminds me of that movie, Men of Honor. I think it's like Cuba Gooding Jr. And he's like a submariner in the Navy, and he like loses his leg. And at the end, he's in the courtroom trying to prove that he can still do his job. And his drill sergeant, who was never nice to him, I think he's played by Al Pacino, not Al Pacino, one of those guys. Doesn't
Can't
matter.
remember. I remember what you're talking about. Yeah.
So he's like doing like a chanting almost, like he finds things in the way and he moves them and he like keeps going forward, and that's what you do. And that's I think why DNS filter is as successful as it is. So kudos to you, Ken.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. And
You're
thankfully, I still
welcome.
got both my legs.
Right, both legs intact. Awesome.
Thankful
So
for that too.
there's another kind of core technology to DNS filter, and that's our categorization. And back in the day, Ken and team decided to purchase another company to kind of bring that technology in house. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that was another. I mean, I feel like all of these things are just really happenstance, sort of serendipitous things that have to almost hit, in our situation. I mean, we got a really unique, once in a lifetime opportunity, I guess. But this was, yeah, I mean, obviously to block DNS, to block domains, you need to know what's what. Like even just at a simple, not even the threat part, just even at a simple content category piece. If you want to block porn, for example, well, you got to have a list of all the sites that are porn. Same for news or any other category, right? So we started off like most of our competitors are today, where we were like, we're just going to go buy a list from somebody. But we couldn't actually afford a real, like, I don't want to say a real list, but we couldn't afford like a Zvello list or anything for $5,000 a month. So we went to this company, Webshrinker, and we were a customer of theirs. I think we were paying like $500 a month for the list, and it was actually really good. Although although we couldn't afford the other list, of course we did testing to see, well, would it be worthwhile to even try to somehow afford this? And
Mm-hmm.
Webshrinker was still consistently better. This guy Adam was the Adam Spotman, the founder of it. He built a bunch of machine learning that was able to do this on the fly, and it was really, really accurate. So um, as I learned more about it, it became apparent that like, hey, it's not just like to be a DNS provider and have a network and a service that can block. I mean, there's clearly lots of people that do that. You can't just be that. Otherwise, you're just a commodity. Like, we need to be better. We need to be able to identify threats and do all this in house and have control over this and make it better. So, decided to approach Adam and say, hey, would you be willing to sell your company and like actually just come work here with us instead? So that's essentially what we did. Brought Adam on pretty early, bunch of equity and stuff like that, and yeah, now we had this web shrinker technology. So today, obviously, at that time, it was just doing content. The piece that really got me fired up is he's like, I got this machine learning set up to be able to do this for threats actually too. So that's the piece that fired me up. Um, so bringing him on board was big, and now here it is. We've got this proprietary technology, and it's doing 2.5 million requests a second, right? And we're identifying. Last time I checked, over 70% of the threats through that technology in house. So yeah, it was a cool story, but it proved it out, and Adam stayed on board for quite some time, and now it's pretty advanced.
Yeah, it is really impressive. We'll do like checks between like our list, so to speak, to keep it in very generic terms against others, like using what's that website? I can't remember the name of it.
Fires total, probably.
Yeah, virus total. So like, what does the virus total say? What do we say? And usually we're ahead of virus total, like meaning that we will label something as malicious in some way. and VirusTotal will not. Nothing on VirusTotal will say it's bad or malicious. And then a few days later, one or two of those are like, oh, it is malicious. 10 days later, more of them, it's malicious. And then, 2 weeks later, everyone's in agreement with us. So that
Hmm.
was a key, a core piece of technology. And just like you said, blocking is like, it's less than half of the equation. The bigger piece is actually knowing what to block. And I think that's where a lot of people, it's hard to kind of prove. And a lot of people, um, it's hard to believe in the same manner. But anyway, it's
Yeah,
true.
truly, man. I mean, it's like the world, it's crazy, it's not even that long ago. I mean, DNS filter isn't even 10 from like the actual first day, Um, really, let's say 8 years since the first paying customer, not even. But like in those 8 years, I mean, on, it's great that we know how to do the NACast stuff. You don't even really need to know how to do that anymore to set up a network. Like that's how we get the fastest network in the world. But to have the 10th fastest or something pretty fast, like you can just kind of buy it off the shelf now. People really underplay, I think, um, and I'm just gonna say it, especially on the Reddit forums, is in my opinion.
IR/MSP.
Yeah, yeah. Hey guys, a lot of them they always just throw us up against other people. They completely devalue the value of having that threat stuff in house. Like it touches so many things. Even acquiring Zorus, learning how, like for example, one of their big complaints is people would something's miscategorized. I don't know if that happens a lot, but let's say it even doesn't, right? But things get miscategorized. It happens with us occasionally too. That somebody submits a ticket and they're like, oh, it takes weeks to get an answer or something like that. Well, that's not on Zorus. I mean, it reflects on them, but at the end of the day, they were using a third party feed. So they're beholden to that provider changing
Hmm.
it. And if that doesn't happen or takes a long time, whatever. With us, we have control over that to do it immediately. And then so there's that. There's the threat blocking effectiveness. I mean, it just touches on so many different levels that people don't really think about that having it in house is a huge advantage.
Exactly. The list is really the core technology. But you
Yeah,
also
and then
mentioned, go ahead.
no, no, sorry, I'll just say too, like the other thing is, while for a time people may have thought, at least in the MSP space, you think, oh, like DNS filter. I know we're showing commitment with this Zorus acquisition now, but you might think, they're doing all these larger Fortune 500s and stuff like that. But the reality is too, doing that is why we are 10 days or more faster. Like we have millions and millions of homes using us. We have entire countries that use us. We have Fortune 500 company, like this whole mixture of a wide variety of locations combined with learning from it in-house is that like having that is not a negative. Like being an MSP using us, that's a positive because you're getting access to a data set that really, yeah, I mean, it may exist with Umbrella, to be fair. They're pretty big too, but they don't have the in-house talent that we do on the machine learning. So,
Yeah. So let me clarify that what you just said. There's like a patient zero. Like, this is a new threat domain or some domain is now malicious. We know it's malicious. And Ken is saying if you have a 20,000 employee enterprise, they are more likely to hit that domain before the MSP customers would. Therefore, the MSP gets the benefits of those enterprise customers being on the front line, so to speak. I've never
yeah,
heard it put that way.
or there's so many, I mean, we could go deep on this if you want. But there's like, I mean, the same could happen for a home, right? Like opposite wise, there's a lot of threats that we see that we're in like 6 million homes right now, being in all those homes all over the world, um, through, ISPs, things like that. You'll see stuff that happens in a home first and then it gets brought into a corporate network as well, or somebody doesn't, and I don't know why that is. I suspect it could be maybe somebody isn't using DNS filter for or something like DNS filter at work. I mean, they're using it
Hmm.
at work, right? But then maybe they don't have roaming protection and they take that work machine home and now they're unprotected at home, and let something through or whatever,
Yeah.
right? But now that thing got through and you bring that laptop back into the corporate network, what do you think happens? Like that's how it goes. But I could go deeper if you want. There's some pretty cool threat hunting stuff that we've seen. But
Well,
yeah.
you mentioned something else that I wanted to touch on, which is Reddit. And I don't want to talk about Reddit, but I do want to talk about like the really like customer centric values that you can have instilled in the entire company. And I remember when I started, like 6 years ago, we were very attentive to customer feedback, and that has never stopped. And I'm curious why you always thought that was important.
Honestly, that's part of, well, there's multiple layers here. Like for one, it starts with like I guess it's probably it could be a bad personal quality or something like that. But I want everybody to like me, is one thing. So for one thing is like it really matters to me to make as many people happy as possible in kind of every aspect of my life, but certainly with the product that we make. So it really matters to me, and so does reputation too. So I just don't. Ideally, I don't want anybody being able to point at us saying that we ever didn't listen or don't care. Like I want them to have a really, really high opinion of us, both in terms of ethics, morals, how the product's built, how we treat people, both internal, external, and all that. So that's kind of like number one. And number two is I think like a lot of times, somebody may ask like, how do you make a successful product or something? I mean, there's a lot that goes into it and starting a company and all that. But I'd say to start with, for me, I knew the core of what I needed in the product to start it, right? But like that's just me. That's just me. As far as what it needs to be for a larger audience, for them to be happy with it, there's lots of founders or people. I feel like this happens maybe when you're really technical too. Is that they'll think they know best, and they want to like, I guess Steve Jobs, I mean, he's a bad example because he's so damn good at his job. But like he had that line that like something like, you need to, the customer doesn't know what they want, you need to tell them. Like that essentially, like, and that's true maybe in some cases when you're doing something really innovative, I guess, I'd say. But when you're trying to build something better and make people happy, and then usually the innovation comes later, why, I don't know why people sit and they think about like how they should build it. But like
You're
in
like,
other
there's a whole
words,
group of
there's
people
a
that will
whole,
just tell you.
yeah, I would just send out before we even had like Canny and these feedback tools and stuff like that. I would just send out a survey monkey survey. I would try not to do it too much to get people upset with like my emails, but I just sent out a survey monkey survey to 500 customers or 300 customers, and whoever answers, cool, I'll get like 50 answers, and I would just build what they say. Generally, there's people agree on things and you find the trends and you just build it. And I accomplish making them happy, giving them a product that does what they need. I also get a deeper connection with them. They feel more invested because they literally, I mean, how cool is that? You got to say, I think it should have this. And to know that you're one of the 5 customers, 10 customers, or even maybe you're the only one behind why this product has this feature, which is then being used by 35 million people around the world. It's just cool. So I don't know. That's why.
Your input is important, so keep sending it in. And it's
Yeah,
funny,
super important.
there's like you can kind of measure this. Like, oh, 50 people voted for this thing, and 100 people voted on this thing. So do the 100-person thing. It's like, well, let's like read the comments because
Well, it
we need.
depends. I think, yeah, a good example is like dark mode. Like, yeah, I want it to. Honestly, I want it cool too. I think it's super cool. Like, I want that on my screen on a wall and just to look badass. Like, I actually, well, that's why the whole front dashboard page is the way it was. I was like, I just want something badass that I can put on my wall in the MSP and make it look like something out of the Born Identity or something like that on my screen. So I get dark mode is cool, and there's a lot of votes. It's probably the most voted or top three, I'm guessing, right now, features in terms of upvotes. But like, truthfully, when you got a limited set of resources, you can't just always go with the top vote. It's like, well, we could make something more stable. We could roll out something that's going to protect more people, making an improvement to the machine learning. It's all that. And then eventually we'll get there. But right now, the mission is to protect real people from bad things happening in the real world. And anything in dark mode doesn't really further that mission, to be honest,
It
even
does
though it's
look
cool.
cool.
Yeah,
Pro,
I
pro,
try to do it for like a hackathon or something.
pro tip: the Dark Reader plugin actually makes the dashboard look really good in dark mode. Just a little pro
It's
tip for the
also not
audience.
that easy to be clear, by the way, too. It's not like we're just lazy. I mean, it's actually a very large undertaking to
Yeah,
do
it's like
dark
it's
mode.
just
It's like a
another
several
style
month
sheet. It's
project.
like actually,
No,
it's a little bit more.
it's way, way more than that. It's like several months of work.
So let's talk about this, like the company culture that you've built at DNS Filter, and now incorporating Zorus, which turns out matches really well. You were alone, working alone at Anaptix. You had a small team. You kind of got some co-founders for DNS Filter, and you've been working remotely mostly this whole time. So, like, how does that? How do you build like a company culture like we have, working remotely?
It's really, really, really hard, honestly. I'd say that. So it started that way. It wasn't really a conscious decision or anything like that. I mean, I'm here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina right now. That's not where I live all the time, but it's where I spend some time. That's basically where Mikey, you live too. Um, you can attest to the fact there's not a lot of Anycast experts down here.
No one's even heard the word before.
Yeah, yeah, they're probably think Castnet or something. What are you talking about? I don't know. They think it's a fishing thing. But yeah, so we just it had to be remote. Like you couldn't just get that talent here. And then I think we got lucky. Probably a terrible way to say it, but like with COVID happening, it just like you had to be remote, so it wasn't really a question, and it became like an advantage, that we were set up that way.
I'm
Um,
picking up a trend here. Go ahead, finish.
well, the thing was with and with COVID, we were like each other's friends to a degree there, right? You'd have virtual happy hours and all these Slack channels started up for interest, so that was cool. You got to do a lot of that. I've been pretty hard on, except during COVID, of course, doing these. We do the annual company meetups. I get a lot of pushback from that from our CFO and the board sometimes because it's a very expensive undertaking. But I think it's critical. You can't be completely remote and never meet each other. You have to like at least meet up once a year for sure, so you understand it's not just a person behind a screen. And you might a lot of times you end up showing up there like, oh, I hate this person, and then you leave and you're like, oh, they're not an ass. Like they're actually pretty cool. They just that's how their whatever body language is or something. You learn all these things, but I'd say the toughest part is the communication. Like I'm not going to say that we're definitely not perfect at it. Like I still want to make us better. But I think like if you're working on a project or whatever, you can't just roll up to the desk next to you and ask something. So you have to have every project plan, and I'm not saying we do this, but we got to have every project plan like meticulously detailed and planned out, and updates and regular cadence on updates and things like that. So it's it's challenging, and it's weird because some of the stuff that you'll read about the real world, like, or not the real world, the in-person world, I'll say. Um, I don't know why I said real world, but the in-person world, they'll say, for example, like recurring meetings are a waste of time. Like, I'm not, I agree you need to be careful about them, but like in a remote culture, I'm not so sure that that's true. Like if you don't do a recurring meeting, then when do you ever
Yeah,
meet and sync
never.
about what's going on? But yeah, if you're in an office where you could just be exchanging information, yelling over cubicles or at lunch or whatever, it's different. So it's just a different beast, man. You have to work really, really hard and not get complacent.
Exactly. So the trend that I'm excuse me, the trend that I'm picking up on is you're what based on what you've said today, it's almost like you were accidentally in the right place at the right time. Like, the OpenDNS purchase, and you were there to capitalize the Webshrinker acquisition, now Lazorus acquisition, inventing a remote culture, and all these things. And I'm curious, like, there's a lot of people that are like aspiring to start companies like DNSFilter, be like an entrepreneur, a CEO, or whatever. And you are kind of saying that you are accidentally in this position. However, I imagine there's some type of underlying drive that has pushed those, let's say, lucky moments to come to fruition. So, like, do you have any advice for aspiring entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I guess a little bit. I mean, the timing is definitely important. I wouldn't say, yeah, I would say timing more than luck, if you know what I mean. Like, if one of these things that I mentioned didn't happen, we could still be in the same place. But for example, I don't think you starting up a DNS filtering company today.
Yeah, don't
I
do
don't
that.
think I don't think you're gonna do that well. I mean, you're welcome to try. I'm not saying you shouldn't because I don't want another competitor. I'm just saying the timing. There might be another shift, for example, in a couple years or something like that. But like that open DNS shift to Cisco, that was a really good time to get into it. And even then, it was only a couple years later. But anyway, timing you can't really control. Well, the luck you can't control, the timing you can. You need to choose the right time to take your shot for sure. But I think it starts with like solving a problem that you lived through for sure, like I did. I think that that's one piece because like it needs to be a problem you know a lot about and that you're passionate about solving. So like the passion is definitely the other key part. And I think the reason for the passion is because you're gonna always see these competitors. You can't focus on them. You can't let that get you down. You always have to like focus just on yourself and your customers and your execution, and there's going to be a lot of really bad things that happen. I can tell you there's a lot more bad things that happen here than good things throughout the years. The good things just ended up being so good they outweigh the bad, but there's way more horrible nights and days and times where you want to give up and everything like that. And you just got to work really, really hard. Like there's a little blog post I wrote about this. I think I quoted Elon Musk at the time. I'll stay away from that now because he was cool years ago, but everybody hates him now. But like, but like, I do think what he said still matters, and it resonated with me, which was that um, you you don't have to necessarily just be intelligent, right? You have to work really, really hard. So, if you're going to get into this and sort of expect like work-life balance, for me, that didn't happen. It's a weak point. It's a weak point for me. But what I could say is that I'll just work harder than anybody else, and I don't mean I mean both in the time, and this only happens if you're passionate about what you're doing, but like both during the hours that I am at work, I am just purely doing work. Like I don't care about anything else in my life except doing the work, and it's probably bad, but that's what I do. I'll also work like double the amount of hours. So it's I think that's the easiest way to get ahead. It's like truthfully, you don't know if you're smarter than anybody else, but if you're the equal level of smart and you put in twice the amount of hours, well, you're going to get there probably at least twice as fast. So it might be cliche or bad advice, but I think that's what it is. Like you can't just chat GPT your way to it. Um, and you can't just expect to have like a work-life balance and be really successful, I don't think, when you're starting up your own business.
Good advice. You have to have that passion, that drive in order to make it through the hard spots. And you got to work a lot harder than you would think. And you have to be paying attention to when it is time to put your foot on the gas and go.
Yeah, there's also this guy Ray Antonino. I don't know if you know
Yeah, I know
him.
him.
Yeah, he's local here in the Myrtle Beach startup community. And I don't know if it still says it, but if you look at his LinkedIn, he says like building a 10-year overnight success. And
Yeah.
that's always resonated with me too, is like people look at it and they'll be, you could look at DNSFilter and say like, oh, that's great. You guys blew up so fast or whatever, but no, we didn't. Like it's going to be 10 years in September. Like that it is true. Like it takes a lot of people don't realize, but if you do the research, it takes even it you got I mean the odds of being successful are so low because a lot of people give up. But even when you're working really, really hard, all these companies that you think just blew up, on average, they're 7 to 10 years at it before you feel like they blew up or before you heard about it. So
Yeah. You
it's
don't
not going to
see,
happen that fast.
yeah, you don't see Ken, shoving a bunch of luggage through TSA to go to a trade show with like 50 people in 2015. You don't see that stuff on the billboards or on our blog or anything like that.
No,
But
no.
Ken put in the work and he did it double time.
Yeah, so that's all it is. I mean, I think if you have passion, you got a problem you want to solve, and you work really, really hard, you're going to be ahead of everybody else already. And then the last thing I'll say is that I mean, to a degree, ChatGPT can help with this a little bit, or AI can help with this a little bit now. But you can't undervalue either being technical yourself or having a technical co-founder. Like I've mentored at places like Techstars and everything like that. And it's the amount of people who come that they have a good idea, but they have
Like,
no technical understanding of a way to make it happen is staggering. um, I don't, I don't see how you can do. I don't know. At least in the world I'm in, I think you got to be technical or have somebody technical along with you. That's going to help a lot. Um,
yeah, I would agree with that. It's like even some of the salespeople here at DNS Filter, I'm like, hey, like open up your terminal and try to close Vim or open Vim and edit a document and just to figure it out. They're like, well, how do
yep.
you do it? I'm like, use Google, use ChatGPT, like go figure it out because that's how you learn with tech. Like that's what I do. Like I know nothing. Like I'm building. I'll show you this on camera.
Yeah.
Here we go. Whew. That's my new home
Oh yeah, I
server over
saw
there.
some pictures of it.
Yeah.
That thing's
So
badass.
so the like how do you
That's
flash an
that's the
HB an
back
H
plate.
yeah, that's the HL15 with the back plane. It's like 15 drives. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's
off
beautiful.
of Backblaze is like they did an offshoot, I think, and build those things. Yeah.
So like I had to learn how to flash an HBA card to IT mode, whatever all that means. But I just wanted to figure it out, and it worked. But I did want to kind of close with one thing. It's like this future. What do you think the future looks like for cybersecurity or DNS filter or both?
It's a good question. Something always trying to figure out. I think, the immediate future, I think we've been pretty clear on with like the roadmap, excuse me, the roadmap with Zorus and everything like that, trying to get, RC stability up and and bring CyberSight into the mix, which is like that behavior analytics, I'll say. um, the reason I bring up cyber sites specifically is because threats are just evolving and getting really, really advanced. So I think I'm trying to think how I can do this without going on a big tangent, but but basically, there's the DNS layer threats and everything like that. Certainly, the analytics of what's going to happen before and after is really important. Before it was collecting it, but now with the advent of machine learning and AI becoming even cheaper and faster and more capable, like we're going to be able to do a ton with that and forensically analyzing threats or trends. I see us building a lot of that. Um, Sort of forensic analysis, pre-warning of things to happen, leveraging AI in finding threats in the product. Um, Additionally, I know for us, we're going to be focusing on something that we're calling Project Illuminate internally. I can't go into everything about it, but it's going to be basically giving a lot of the machine learning insights that we have and our decision making, giving insights to that to people who may or may not be DNS filter customers so they can protect better. Uh, and then beyond that, I don't know. I'm always like thinking about it. Uh, I know one thing that concerns, I'm thinking, that DNS filter, I mean, our mission is to protect real people from real things happening in the real world. And I'll go on one tangent for a second and mean that, like, that's really important to me because there's all sorts of things that happen that people don't realize we have an impact on, from national security to child safety and things like that, that affect things in the real world, like our research. We were just named in a national security warning for research that we did multiple years ago. 2020, three, I think it was, we reported 3 or 4 child pornography rings to the FBI. We were involved in something called Project Endgame, stopping the world's largest ransomware, or having the world's largest ransomware takedown. So basically, as I see these things happening in the real world, my point is that I'm realizing we're not protecting machines or anything. We're protecting people, and we're filtering bad stuff from happening to people. So I say that because one thing that's kind of at the top of my mind, I don't know if we'll turn it into a product or not, is things like that can happen as a result of AI, like deep fake candidates and everything like that. You've seen it happen a lot. I don't know if you know, but they didn't get through thanks to our amazing HR team and some of the training tactics that we give them and stuff that we've been looking at uh, and exploring, I'll say, for a potential product. But we had somebody that actually came in here to DNS Filter applying for a job that was a deep fake candidate. So that really concerns me. I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question,
Yeah,
but I
I've
think,
seen I've seen some videos like that, like an interview session where it was just a total fake person on the other end, and the interviewer was like, "Can you wave your hand in front of your face?" And the person, whoever was working the AI, was like, "Oh no," because that's
yeah,
going to break the current version of AI that could be used. But that's only a temporary
yeah, they're gonna
scam
get
prevention
better and
measure.
better, right? That might work now, and we have some tactics that I'd rather not share that we do that I think work for now, but I do believe that I don't know if we'll go in this direction or it's something we'll do. I do believe that as we build this Illuminate product, I realize how much information we do have and can tie all these indicators together and realize that there's a lot of other types of threats that we could stop. So um, I have a
The
feeling that we'll maybe get into more.
The future looks bright. Well, I'm excited for the ride. And Ken, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Same here. Thank you. Glad we were able to finally get the time to do it.